Ayy, look, yeah, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the New Media Podcast. I'm your host, Ya. We hope you enjoyed the last episode because, as always, today's going to be an even better episode. Of course, I got the whole crew with me. Everybody's in the house today, and today we got a couple things that we got to get into. I know it's been a long week and a half we've missed, but we spent some quality time together. We've been chilling watching these last couple of games of the Eastern Conference Finals. So, of course, the two things that we got on the agenda today, number one being, of course, we'll do a little bit of a recap of the Boston Celtics and Miami Heat series, and then, of course, now we finally made it to the end of the road, the NBA Finals. We'll go ahead and give our predictions there. So, of course, before we jump into anything else, temperature check. How's everybody doing today?
Man, it feels good. It's been a long week and a half, a stressful week and a half. Watching these games, man. My team put me through a heart attack, but they bailed me out, and I can't wait to get to it, man. Because this NBA Finals it's been a long journey. It's been a long season, so let's get to it.
It's good watching basketball, not stressing about your team. So it was good to watch the games from your side, the perspective, and it was fun, man. It was good to see Miami close out that game 7. They played phenomenally well that series, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah, man, I can't lie. I know obviously how heart was pumping each and every game up until that last buzzer, up until Game 7, but. Of course, let's go ahead and jump right into it. The Miami Heat versus the Boston Celtics. The last time we talked about these two teams and this series specifically, Miami had these guys on the ropes, 3-0 going into Game 4. But in Game 4, they dropped that game at home, 99-116. Then they end up going back on the road to Boston for Game 5. They lose that game, 97-110. And then Game 6, a game that was going back and forth. In that fourth quarter, the Miami Heat were down 10. They were able to rally back based on Jimmy Butler's performance in that fourth quarter. Next thing you know, Derek White hits a game winner on them, which forces the Boston Celtics to a Game 7. So the Boston Celtics were on the verge of coming back down from 3-0 up until that Game 7 performance where the Boston Celtics pretty much shit the bed and they lost this game by 103-84. So what have you learned? What have you learned from this series going into this next NBA Finals?
I mean, I think the Boston Celtics were literally on the verge of, making history. And I know a lot of people are going to point to that Jason Tatum ankle injury and talk about how that could have been the difference maker. But again, that's something that we'll just never know. But looking at this game specifically, I mean, Jason Tatum goes down. He's your superstar. He's your number one guy. So he goes down. All eyes are on Jaylen Brown now. He's your number 2, and now he's going to step up in the number 1 role because Jason Tatum, everybody saw the replay of the ankle injury. It looked bad. He tweaked it really bad on the first play of the game. So that's about as unlucky as you can get. So Jaylen Brown's the guy that's expected to step up. He's the guy that everybody's looked towards. He's going to be their leader. He's their number 1 guy now because Jason Tatum's pretty much out the picture. Every single time we've seen him go up for a layup or go for a basket, we see him grimacing on the replay. So Jaylen Brown, he's thrusted into this role. And what does he do? He has a terrible, terrible, terrible Game 7 performance. I mean, when you look at this, the 8 turnovers, the inefficient shots, I mean, it felt like Jaylen Brown couldn't produce anything on his own. And, it's one thing to just be missing shots, but being unable to create for your teammates and being able to even just handle a basketball. I feel like Jaylen Brown should be looking at this series and what people have been saying. Caleb Martin came out on an interview, I think, about today, talking about, the game plan was to force Jaylen Brown left. That's always been the game plan. Draymond Green last year after the finals said, we realized these guys cannot go left. And honestly, we know who he's talking about when he says these guys cannot go left. He's talking about Jaylen Brown. And so for him to put up that performance, I think it has Boston reconsidering whether they should really give him $300 million and give him that supermax that he's been looking for because, he made all NBA, but is it worth giving a guy an all NBA, all that type of money when, he's thrusted into a role where he can't produce? And, the series, Caleb Martin outplayed him. And that's the next guy I wanted to get into. I mean, to me, I understand why they gave it to Jimmy Butler. You always give it to your stars, the Eastern Conference MVP trophy, but Caleb Martin played a hell of a series. I mean, this guy, it felt like shot after shot. It was a big time bucket. Whenever we needed a shot, this guy came out and he hit it. And I give credit to Spoelstra and the development team and, identifying talent because, this guy a couple of years ago, he got waived by the Hornets and now he's sitting here up in the finals after having a great performance. And, Gabe Vincent, he stepped up. Bam, he had his moments in this series. I definitely do want to see some better things from him offensively, but defensively, he was phenomenal. And this team, people really thought that we would be the Sixers. We're not the most talented team. I think as evidenced every single time people mentioning undrafted players, but when it comes to being mentally resilient and having the best coach in the NBA, I don't think anybody's topping the Miami Heat. So, it was a great series win, and I can't wait to get to the next one because, again, I think this series opened up as the second biggest odds, like favorites, in terms of the Nuggets after the Warriors 2018. And I really think people are underrating us. I don't expect this team to lay down and not compete. They've made it this far. They might as well just complete the job. So I'm excited to see it.
Man, once again, you got the Heat, the underdogs of this round, against the top dog Celtics, and once again they prevailed. It kind of got scary for you guys. I'd be going to 3-0 lead. Celtics on verge of history. Everybody's going crazy on the media. Everybody's going crazy on Twitter talking about, oh, what happened to Jimmy Butler, Timothy Butler, Jimmy Jordan Butler, and it was looking scary. It was looking rough going into that game 7. And you guys came out shooting lights out. You feel me? Like Caleb Martin coming out the game. I think he started at 11 for 12, 11 for 13. He was on fire that game 7, and I feel like, Jimmy going down the stretch in that game 7, he showed up. He had a great game. Guys stepped up. Bam stepped up. Struss stepped up. Even Duncan Robinson in this series, I feel like he had his moments, bar that game 6, that he missed those 2 wide open threes. Other than that, I feel like this whole series, he came in and played some good minutes for you guys. And for the Celtics, man, like you mentioned, Caleb Martin came out in an interview today on a podcast talking about when JT went down or he got hurt and he was deferring to Jaylen Brown this game 7. They were forcing him left, and every turnover came from him driving left, him going to the left side. He had 8 turnovers. 4 of them were poked. 1 he lost. I think 2 were offensive fouls, and all that was coming him going to the left. And these guys, Draymond said it last year on the JJ Redick show. He came out and said, we're forcing these guys to the left, forcing them to the left. Every time they touch the ball, we want them to either go with their left hand, dribble with their left hand, or attack left. And it kind of worked out for the Miami Heat in their favor. JB, if you're gonna be a guy that's gonna get paid $300 million this offseason and you're an all NBA player and this is your moment to step up into that 1A spot and take over for your team, he didn't come out and produce, and it was pretty bad for him. And guys like Marcus Smart, he wasn't there either. Horford wasn't, another no show. Brogdon, with the injury on his elbow, he wasn't, much of the squad either. So it was looking tough.
Can I just say Derek White was phenomenal though? Derek White
yeah,
had an absolutely amazing series. He had an amazing series.
Derek White man show in that third quarter.
Yeah, that third quarter he was trying to reel his team back in, and he was hooping, but it's not enough, when your best player is kind of hobbled, injured. It's tough for him to make some drives, and your second best player is just a no-show, 8 turnovers. I think it was like 23 shots on 22 points or like 21 points, something like that, non-efficient, and he's just making horrible plays down the stretch, and it's tough to show up like that for Boston. So another year for Boston going down the drain, and they got some decisions to make. Guys like JB, if he wants to walk out or if he's going to decide, hey, trade me, I don't want to be part of the situation anymore, or if they want to, walk away from that, we'll see what happens. But Miami, man, it's going to be another finals where another playoff round, basically finals. Yeah, it's the same thing, but another, series where they're going to have to come in, grit it out, go and, fight like they've been fighting all playoffs. They've been a team that's been battling with the lesser, depth, power, strength on the team, star power and everything. But, they're gonna fight, and they got a guy like Jimmy Butler, playoff riser. He's been performing all playoffs, and those 3-game stretch where he was in a non-show, he was pretty quiet. It's all good. Game 7 comes, and he's there to perform defensively and offensively. So shout out Miami Heat. Hopefully their fairy tale continues, and we'll see what happens in the finals.
Before I go ahead and jump right into Game 7 and what happened in that game specifically, I want to go all the way back to Game 4 a little bit. To the Celtics, kind of their 3-game win streak to kind of bring them back into this series. So to start out the entire series, the first 3 games, obviously the Celtics didn't shoot the ball well. The Celtics are a team that live and die by that 3-point line. But for some odd reason, when the shots aren't falling, these guys aren't able to create baskets at the inside the paint or in the mid range area, and so they struggled heavily. That's why they went down 3-0. But in Game 4 specifically, they shot 40% from the 3-point line. Game 5, they shot 41% from the 3-point line, and then these last two games, in Game 6 and in Game 7, they didn't necessarily shoot the ball pretty well. They're in the low 20s, and so a team that really lives behind that 3-point line, obviously it's going to be hot and cold like I've always said, when these guys hit their shots, they look like one of the best teams in the NBA, but when they don't, they just look extremely confused out there and lost. And so for the Boston Celtics, they took care of business, and the message each and every game coming out of Game 4 was like, coming out of Game 3 was like, don't let us get one. And then they ended up getting one. Then they're like, okay, don't let us get two. Same thing. Don't let us get three, all the way up until Game 7. And they got away with one in Game 6 with that Derek White game winner. I think the Miami Heat did an excellent job at kind of just pretty much allowing somebody other than Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown to beat you. That Marcus Smart took a disgusting fadeaway 3-pointer on the left hash, and the ball, that was a perfect miss. Like Abdi were talking about it. It was just a perfect miss where the ball bounced around the rim a couple times, and Derek White was there. Max Strus, the guy they subbed in that possession, didn't necessarily do his job at boxing out Derek White, and they were able to steal one on the road. But now as I get to this Game 7, I immediately knew once Jason Tatum got hurt, this game was over. There's no way this guy could battle through a severe ankle injury like that, where his ankle pretty much rolled and it touched the ground on the very first play. It's a very unfortunate situation, but it is what it is. But injuries happen in the game of basketball, and so you got to be able to battle through that. And you guys have already hounded Jaylen Brown for his performance, so I won't say too much about it, but it was terrible. A guy that you're considering paying $300 million, that supermax contract, to a guy that he couldn't carry his team when the true number one option went out, and it was shown on full display. And the Miami Heat, they did a great job at taking the game from the jump. Immediately once the ball got tipped off, it felt like the Miami Heat had control all the way throughout the game, and they never really let up. The game maybe got close to like an 8-point game, and each and every time they called timeout in those situations, Eric Spoelstra was able to rally his guys back, and they're able to settle in, take the punches, and then kind of just deliver a punch themselves. So it was well played by the Miami Heat. One thing that I was thinking about coming out of Game 6 was, everybody talking about how the Celtics are on the verge of making history, and going into Game 7, they just can't lose. But there's always this possibility, there's this doubt in my mind, thinking like, nobody's really talking about the Celtics potentially losing a Game 7 at home. Everybody was talking about how they're going to the Miami Heat are going to get blown off the floor, and I feel like that just put like a little bit more pressure on the Boston Celtics to kind of go out there and finish the job and do something that's never been done before. I believe it was 152 teams coming back down from 03, and now it's 153. So great job by the Miami Heat. But I think I have one issue coming out of this whole series, which is the Eastern Conference Finals MVP trophy going to Jimmy Butler. So how do we feel about Jimmy Butler walking away with the Eastern Conference Finals MVP trophy instead of Caleb Martin?
Like I said, I'm not too mad about Jimmy Butler winning this. I think the award kind of caters towards the star player, the number one option. And early on in the series, Jimmy Butler was the best player. Then as the series went on, Caleb Martin really got into it, and he was playing better and better. And ultimately felt like the last 2, maybe 3 games, Caleb Martin was the better player. But Jimmy Butler is a tone setter for this team, and it just feels like it was a reward for the entire playoff run. I understand it is only for the Eastern Conference Finals, but I felt like it was a reward for the entire playoff run. But ultimately, if Caleb Martin won this award, I think everybody would be happy for him. Jimmy Butler won. I don't think anybody's mad about it. But Caleb Martin played a hell of a series, like I mentioned before. I mean, you come in, nobody has an idea who's going to be that third option for us, whether that be Gabe Vincent, whether that be Caleb Martin, whether that be Max Strus, whether that be Duncan Robinson. Nobody has an idea who's going to be that third option. And it's not just a matter of him, just the shots that he was hitting. It was the shots that he was taking. It felt like every big moment that we needed a shot, Caleb Martin would step up, and he would be the guy that we need. So, I'm not angry Jimmy Butler won this award. I think I would have been a little bit happier if Caleb Martin won this, just because, rewarding a role player for stepping up like that is definitely an amazing thing. But again, if Jimmy won, and I'm happy about it. So.
No, I'm not mad that Jimmy, he won the award. I felt like he consistently throughout the series, all 7 games, I felt like he's been the best player on the team. So for me, Caleb Martin down the stretch, I feel like, the big shots came. He had some big shots, that hurt the Celtics. I felt like, his shots made more noise than Jimmy's, but consistently throughout the game, like all levels through the game, I felt like Jimmy was more consistent. So, for me, it was good that Jimmy won. If Caleb won, I see why he won. He stepped up big this series. I feel like you can arguably say that he's the second best player. He was the second best player on the court for the series, barring, the two stars, JT and Jimmy. But other than that, man, no issues with Jimmy winning.
My only issue with Jimmy Butler winning this Eastern Conference Finals MVP trophy is I just don't understand what the NBA want this award to be. They implemented the conference finals MVP trophy last season. We saw Steph Curry win it for the Western Conference. We saw Jason Tatum win it for the Eastern Conference. And of course, you're always going to want to reward the best player on the team that's going to the NBA Finals. But I feel like this award should be a little bit different. Obviously, if Jimmy Butler's playing tremendous basketball throughout the course of the series, then of course you rightfully so you give him that award. But I feel like Caleb Martin has been definitely the most consistent player for the Miami Heat in this specific series. Caleb Martin averaged 19 points, 6 rebounds, shooting 60, 50, and 88 from the field. You look at those numbers, you hear those numbers. Let me compare those numbers to Jaylen Brown's numbers. Jaylen Brown averaged 19 points and 6 rebounds himself, but shooting 42% from the field, 16% from three, and 67% from the free throw line. And so it's just like, are we always going to reward the best player on the winning team, or are we going to reward the player that had the most impact on the winning team? And I feel like Caleb Martin's impact was a lot more than Jimmy Butler's impact throughout the course of this series. Yes, Jimmy Butler had his fun in the first 3 games where he was, hitting big shot after big shot, taunting the Boston Celtics consistently and going after guys like Al Horford and Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. But I feel like this award would have been more rewarding to a guy like Caleb Martin, a guy that nobody expected to come onto the scene and have an outburst like this on one of the biggest stages in basketball. And so, all the credit in the world to Jimmy Butler for winning this award. I think, he's had a tremendous playoff run. And I feel like, they kind of just, like Abdi said, I think they just kind of gave it to him based on the run that he's had, but not necessarily the Eastern Conference Finals performance that he had. And I feel like it would have been better suited for a guy like Caleb Martin, a guy who came onto the scene, has had a tremendous playoff run himself, but kind of stepped up big when they needed him to in the Eastern Conference Finals. But nonetheless, the Miami Heat, they get the job done. They take care of business. Although it took them a lot longer than expected, at the end of the day, they're here now, and now they look forward to an NBA Finals run, a championship game against the Denver Nuggets on Thursday night. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. We've now finally reached the end of the road, a long NBA season. It feels like yesterday we were just talking about the first round of the NBA playoffs, but here we are now talking about the 2023 NBA Finals. And so obviously, as we all know, we have the Denver Nuggets coming out of the West, and now we have the Miami Heat coming out of the East. The Denver Nuggets versus the Miami Heat. Who do you guys got and why?
Man, I think picking against my team is a key here. But this time I think this is like a fair evaluation. I got the Nuggets winning this in 6. The reason being is that, we're a heavy zone defense, and we troubled Boston a lot with zone, forcing their shooters to hit big shots, and they're unable to. But the Denver Nuggets, I was reading a stat, they're the number 1 team against zone this season. And of course, they have a guy that picks apart zones like it's nothing in Nikola Jokic. Other than LeBron, I can't think of anyone else that beats zone consistently like Jokic. And so when you have Jokic there, and the amount of shooters that they have in MPJ, and Bruce Brown and Jamal Murray and all these, and Aaron Gordon in the corner, and every single guy that KCP, a bunch of guys that hit shots at a high clip. I think that's problematic for our zone defense. I will say this: our 3-point shooting is off the charts this postseason. I don't expect us to cool off one bit. The Nuggets do struggle in guarding the 3, and that was evident in the Lakers series. The only problem was the Lakers don't put up 3s at a high clip, but that was something that the Nuggets have issue with. They don't guard the 3 particularly well. But one thing that I am going to point out is that, Bam Adebayo's job is not to stop Jokic. That's impossible. You're not going to stop stars in the NBA. But one thing that I am going to point out is I think people are underrating how good his defense is potentially against Jokic in this type of matchup. I think his job isn't to stop Jokic, is to try to make Jokic work for every single bucket, whether that's fronting him, getting physical with him, beating to his spots. As Tristan Thompson pointed out today, he was like, one of the ways that you can try to stop Jokic is, get close to him, get physical with him, beat him to the spot, fight for your real estate. And so that's something that Bam's going to attempt to do. But ultimately, I think Jokic is just too much of a problem. It's going to be impossible to stop. He has too much size and length on Bam. But one thing that we are going to try to do is attempt to target Jokic on the offensive end. And I did see success in that game 4 with LeBron going downhill against Jokic and attacking him in the pick and roll. A lot of the teams so far in the postseason haven't had a ton of success doing that just because of Denver scheme, the sheer size. But one key factor that I do have to point out for the Nuggets is I think we're going to have no answers for Aaron Gordon. Whether we play Kevin Love, I think he's just going to overpower Kevin Love, or he's going to get by him. Caleb Martin's too small to be able to stop Aaron Gordon. I think that's the one guy that's a key factor for them, and it's going to be a bit hard to stop because whether he's on the dunker spot and, you pull Bam away from the rim, who's going to be under there? Is it going to be Kevin Love? Is it going to be Caleb Martin? What are we going to do with Aaron Gordon? Jamal Murray and MPJ, that's a different issue to handle. But, Aaron Gordon is going to be in the dunker spot constantly. And so that's a guy that we're going to have trouble attempting to stop. But on the offensive end, I think Bam has to try to make Jokic work, use his speed, use his quickness to get by him, run out offensively, do whatever you can to get Jokic tired. You have to get out and beat him to his spots, get baskets whenever you can. And then Jimmy Butler, I think he's going to be probably guarded by Aaron Gordon. He has to attack his matchup. A lot of times in the last series, I was not happy with Jimmy Butler's play. Constant pump fakes and, looking for fouls and, being a bit hesitant. That's not Jimmy Butler's game. When he goes downhill and he attacks and, he uses his quickness, whether that's against someone like Aaron Gordon or uses his size, if that's against Bruce Brown, that's his type of play. So, offensively, we're going to move the ball a lot. We're going to have to try to beat him with our 3-point shooting. But ultimately, I think the size and the play of Jokic and Aaron Gordon and MPJ is going to be a bit too much for us to handle. And I expect us to get killed on the boards. That's the one area that I'm a bit worried about because even in the Celtics series, when they started to come back down 3-0, everybody was crashing the glass. Robert Williams, Al Horford, Derek White, Jason Tatum, everybody, Jaylen Brown, even at one point, everybody was crashing the glass. And Denver Nuggets have been unbelievable on the glass this season, especially in the postseason. So I expect us to struggle there, and I have the Nuggets winning in 6.
We've been given the Heat, a lot of good stuff coming into this finals. You feel me? A lot of people, yeah, have been picking them. I've been picking them. I've been going against the team, so I don't know why he's going against him again. But I feel like the little superstition magic that he's been working, it ends. And I feel like I've been giving a little too much credit. I think it ends in 5.
Don't get me wrong. My problem is though, I think people are treating the Nuggets too much like it's a 2017 Warriors. They're a great team. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But don't get me wrong, they're a great team, but it just feels like everybody's just like writing off the Heat like right away. Like I would not be surprised if we push them to 6 or 7, but like at the same time, like I feel like offensively, this is by far the most disciplined and best offensive team that we're gonna see.
That's what I'm gonna say. I feel like they're the most disciplined and offensive team in the playoffs, and even like during the clutch moments. You guys been in a lot of big clutch moments, and you guys won games in big clutch moments. I feel like the Nuggets down the stretch in clutch moments feel like they got an advantage over you guys. I feel like they just execute better on offense, and defensively they just tighten up. And they're 2-star players in Jamal Murray and Jokic. Every game they've been phenomenal in the playoffs. Every game they've been showing up in the fourth quarter. They've been hooping. They've been putting up some crazy numbers, and their supporting cast has been there every single night. MPJ, Aaron Gordon, KCP, Bruce Brown, guys like that. They've been showing up and been producing. They got 6 guys in double-digit numbers offensively and scoring. And defensively, they've been clamping up. They went up against LeBron and AD, KD and Booker. They went up against some tough guys, and they're about to see Jimmy Butler and Bam and some guys that that got some grit into them, that got some fight into them. Caleb Martin, Max Strus, Kyle Lowry's off the bench, Duncan Robinson. Those guys, they're gonna come in, they're gonna have to show up, and they have to play phenomenal every game. It's gonna be tough. They let the Lakers shoot. We're not a good shooting team. We had a lot of threes, but we didn't make a lot. And I feel like, Miami, if they get some opportunities that we had, they start hitting those shots, it might be a little different series. But to me, I feel like the Nuggets got it in 5. And Jokic and Bam, I feel like Jokic is going to give him hell. He's going to give him hell, Lakers kind of find a way to put AD on Aaron Gordon, kind of put Rui on Jokic, and have AD help and somewhat try to slow it down. that still didn't even work. And I feel like you guys don't have that size on the bench. You guys don't have that size on the floor with Bam. You guys are a pretty small lineup, and those guys from point guard to center, 6'5" and above, from Murray to KCP, MPJ at 6'10", Aaron Gordon at 6'10", Jokic at 7 feet. They're built. They got some size, and they're going to be putting the ball to the paint. They're going to try to get a lot of offensive rebounds. They're going to be attacking a lot. So it's going to be tough for you guys on the size end, and it's going to be tough. And I feel like Bam is not going to win that battle. Offensively for him, he has some good games offensively this playoffs, but still the inconsistency for me, him finding his shot, him trying to find a bucket in the paint. And it's going to be tough for him against Jokic, Aaron Gordon, and MPJ. They got some size down there, and it's going to be tough. So we'll see what happens, but I got the Nuggets in 5.
Yeah, I mean, the Miami Heat, what a run these guys have been on. These guys have been on an amazing run from day one. Going all the way back to the play-in tournament, where they lost the first game to the Hawks, and they were a couple minutes away losing to my Bulls. But here they are now. And the one thing that I've learned from this Miami Heat team, all the way up until this point, is that they're a very, very resilient team. These guys understand the moment. Some of these guys have been here before. They understand that in any situation, they can be the better team, but they just have to lock in. And for these guys to get their get back from last year in Game 7 after losing to the same team, it's a great feeling for them, and I'm sure they're coming into this game 1 in this series with the utmost confidence in themselves. But I think this is the end of the road for the Miami Heat, and I say that because I feel like the Nuggets, Jokic is going to do his thing. Jokic has been pretty much unstoppable in this postseason. Jamal Murray's been amazing. And these guys, they play the best team basketball you can think of. And I feel like, they're very well coached. Big H mentioned it, they're very well disciplined. And I feel like the Miami Heat is going to have, the Miami Heat are going to have a very hard time trying to slow this offense down, because, the Denver Nuggets, they could speed it up on you. They could play fast-paced basketball. They could fly up and down the court, but they can also run a half-court offense themselves. They can run a lot of sets in the half court and get quality buckets for each and every one of their guys. And so I have the Nuggets winning this series in 6. I wouldn't be surprised if the Miami Heat push this series to 7 games because those guys are very battle-tested. And so I think Jokic is going to do his thing. He's going to dominate. He's going to get the better of Bam, but Bam has to do a great job at slowing him down and trying to beat him to his spots and kind of just throw him off his game a little bit, because if you double Jokic, he's going to find the open guy. And I feel like that's just not going to be the smart play for the Miami Heat. And if you kind of just let him go one-on-one, that's your best bet. You kind of have to just live with that magic between Jokic and Bam. And for Jamal Murray, he's gonna have to do what he's been doing so far. He's going up against guys like Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, Kyle Lowry defensively, and so this is another matchup for him that he has to take personally, because he's better than all of those guys. And so, but the thing is, the difference between these guys and the Los Angeles Lakers is I feel like the Miami Heat, their role players are just a lot better than the Lakers, and so the ability for them to hit shots from the outside is just a true bigger threat in comparison to the last series that we just saw between the Nuggets and the Lakers. And so for the Miami Heat, the one way that these guys can somehow, some way come out victorious in this series it would be to apply a lot of pressure at the rim. Jimmy Butler, we saw a lot of pump faking at the basket in this last series against the Celtics, but that's because he was going up against guys like Robert Williams and Al Horford, and so and while having a guy like Derek White guard him on the perimeter. And so I feel like in this specific series against the Denver Nuggets, knowing that they don't necessarily have a true rim protector, I feel like Jimmy Butler is going to have his way with any defender that they throw at him. Yeah, they're pretty much going to have to double him and force the Miami Heat to kind of put the ball in somebody else's hands and force another guy to beat them. But Jimmy Butler is going to do his thing. But I feel like, the one guy that needs to come back in this series is Tyler Hero. And a lot of people have disagreed with me on this one. A lot of people have mixed feelings about this one, but I feel like Tyler Hero, although he has been ruled out for Game 1 and potentially Game 2, they're basically targeting him for returning Game 3. I feel like Tyler Hero would be the perfect fit in this specific series. I know, a lot of people don't like Tyler Hero defensively, and he slows down the game and the ball kind of just sticks with him. But I feel like in this specific series, you need a lot of bucket getters, and especially when you're going up against an offense like the Denver Nuggets. And so I feel like Tyler Hero if you're able to find minutes for a guy like Duncan Robinson, who knows his role, I think that Miami Heat can do a good enough job at, slotting in Tyler Hero when they can, because, when Tyler Hero has it going, that's a 22, 25 points per game scorer right there, alongside the guys that you already have, like Jimmy Butler, Bam, Gabe Vincent, and Caleb Martin. So if he's able to come back in game 3, if let's say the series is 1-1 split going back to Miami, that'd be in Miami's favor tremendously, because if Tyler Hero is able to come off the bench in any capacity, he's going to be able to provide buckets for this team, and that's exactly what you need. And so, all in all, I do have.
I think there is a problem with that though, because Draymond was talking about this on his show. He said, if you go down 0-2, well, yeah, it makes sense to go and start playing Tyler Hero. Put him in the rotation right away, because you needed some sort of spark. You're down 2-0. But if the series is 1-1, you stole home court. You got a game on the road. You did your job. You went in. You took a game from Denver at that elevation. You went to their home. You took a game. Does that mean that you suddenly just start tweaking the adjustments? You start fitting him in when you already stole home court? Because if you're 1-1 against a number 1 seed, and you took away one of their games from home court, is it really a necessity to put in Tyler Hero at that point? Because you made it this far into the playoffs without him. I do think he was going to have a pretty solid playoffs. I think he was going to play good, but you already made it this far without him. Is it a necessity to even fit him in the lineup at this point, especially the fact that he hasn't played basketball in a month and a half? It's been so long since he's touched the basketball and really had like a lot of basketball movement in terms of just a playoff game. It's not a regular season you're bringing him back in. You're bringing him back into a playoff game. So finals on top of all that. So I think, I'm kind of the mindset that if we're down 0-2, yes, I think he should get some run. But if it's 1-1 or somehow magically we're up 2-0, I don't think he should really touch the rotation, because you already have a set amount of guys that you're already gonna play. So that's where I'm at with it.
I feel like even if it's 1-1, I feel like he was projected to come back in this situation. If you guys were in this situation, he was still projected to come back one of these games. And but like going into the situation, if it's 1-1, you guys are down 0-2, you guys have to put him into that, not into the lineup, but give him some minutes off the bench. Let him get his fill back for the game, because I feel like he's that type of player that can get his own bucket, that can create his own shot, that can give you the points that you need off the bench or as a starter. He can score for himself and try to find create for other teammates. And defensively, you can hide a guy like that. You can hide guys like that.
Kind of tough, I can't lie.
It is tough
because we play a heavy switch scheme. And
yeah.
So like our starting lineup, with Caleb Martin, for example, like there's no defensive liability. Like everybody can hold their own defensively. That's Gabe, that's Max Strus, that's Jimmy, that's Caleb Martin, and then of course Bam. Everybody on the lineup can hold their own defensively. Duncan Robinson, he's the type of guy that's gonna come in 15 minutes a game. He's gonna shoot his shots, and he was competing defensively in the last series. I mean, like he wasn't like a liability defensively. I think the only guys really that you can write out as liabilities defensively is just Kevin Love, to be honest, and Cody Zeller, which I haven't even talked about this. Yeah, I think where we're gonna get hurt is the non-Bam minutes. When Bam sits, I think that's a part where you might just absolutely get crushed, because I don't trust Kevin Love and Cody Zeller enough to really feel confident about them in this type of series. I like Kevin Love next to Bam. I think he spaces the floor well. But if the Nuggets decide to attack Kevin Love and put him in a lot of actions, I am worried about that. But getting back to the point, I think it's kind of tough to put Tyler Hero in this type of lineup. I mean, you had a set rotation going on. You have Caleb Martin beaming with confidence. You have Gabe Vincent beaming with confidence. Of course, you have Jimmy and Bam there. And if Tyler Hero bought into a role where he was going to be a spot up shooter, and he was going to hit his buckets here and there, maybe. But at this point, is it really worth bringing back somebody who defensively it's a big problem and doesn't really fit your scheme? And offensively, we've been predicated on ball movement this entire postseason. I mean, how many times has the ball swung from side to side, gotten to the 3-point shooter? Is it really worth it bringing a guy that's going to stop that? So I just feel like even if it's 1-1, like I'll be happy with 1-1, and I think we should just stick with what works.
Yeah, I mean, you're the Heat fan, but to me, the type
if we're down 0-2,
player,
like hell yeah, just bring it back. Might as well. We're losing.
I don't know. For me, it's like the type of caliber player he is, and if he's on my team, would have won him back immediately. I won't, even if it's him coming off the bench, giving 10, 15 minutes.
I mean, to be fair, like you got D'Lo, fam.
Yeah, I know we got D'Lo.
Yeah,
But
D'Lo and Vando and
D'Lo,
Beasley.
Vando, and
they
Schroeder.
they're ready to play though, and I feel like Hero's ready to play too. So if he gets an
Yeah.
opportunity, I feel like it might be a little different, type of game for you guys, different look, to get the Nuggets. The Nuggets, they're watching you guys throughout this whole playoffs with this type of scheme and look that you guys been playing, and for them, it might throw them off a little bit. And, Hero might be that burst of energy you guys might need to push through and get to that chip. So who knows what might happen, but we'll see.
I think even if the series is 0-2 or 1-1 going back to Miami, I think bringing back a guy like Tyler Hero would help this Miami Heat team a lot. And I feel like, obviously we know what he brings on the offensive end, and it's been a while since he's touched a basketball and since he's played a game. But let's not forget that Tyler Hero has been in this type of situation before. He's been in the NBA Finals before, in a different setting, of course. But at the same time, the NBA Finals are still the NBA Finals. You're one of the last two teams standing, fighting for that Larry O'B trophy. And going back to that 2020 run for the Miami Heat, Tyler Hero was arguably one of the best players in that run, especially in that Eastern Conference Finals against the Boston Celtics, where he pretty much dominated each and every game. And I believe in one game he had about 37 points, and he was a rookie back then, just leading the way. Jimmy on the court with Jimmy Butler and Bam, and those two guys were amazing. Tyler Hero, the rookie, was taking these guys home, and closing out the deal against that very tough Boston Celtics team where they had, guys like Kemba Walker, Gordon Hayward, Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Horford. And I think they had Robert Williams back then as well. But so it's kind of like, I understand that you throw Tyler Hero in a situation like this, you don't know what to expect. But I feel like, with Tyler Hero having the experience of being in the NBA Finals and playing through long postseason runs, I feel like if the Miami Heat are able to just kind of find about 15 to 22 minutes for him in any sort of capacity, I feel like it would help them in their favor. And so if they're down 0-2, you kind of just throw them in and see how it works. But if it's 1-1, I think Eric Spoelstra has to kind of game plan accordingly and make sure that not the rotations aren't getting thrown off, and you're not necessarily forcing Tyler Hero to play a lot more than he has to. Because I understand that when you're down 0-2. Obviously, you're just throwing everything in the kitchen sink. You're just throwing everything at the wall, hoping that some sticks. But if it's 1-1, I think Eric Spoelstra was one of the greatest coaches we've ever seen and one of the best coaches in the league. I think he can game plan accordingly and kind of fit Tyler Hero where he's, wherever he may see, wherever he fits on this team. And so I think, Tyler Hero would be a huge plus for this series. In those first couple of minutes when he comes back, whether it's game 3 or game 4, it's going to look a little rusty because obviously he hasn't played basketball since April. But at the same time, once he settles in and once that shot starts to fall again, it'll help the Miami Heat a lot. And defensively, I mean, the Miami Heat have been great, going zone and then kind of just going man. They did that against the Boston Celtics, and it kind of threw them off their game where, in one possession, they're starting off in a zone, but with about 10, 12 seconds left in the shot clock, they're going into man and then they're kind of just matching up with their guys and letting the guys go one-on-one. And it worked. And so I feel like they can do the same thing with this Denver Nuggets team, but they got to be a lot more disciplined, man, because, the Denver Nuggets are a great 3-point shooting team, and they've been great throughout the course of the regular season and in the postseason. So, the Miami Heat have to understand that there's a tall task at hand. They can't afford to slip up like they did against, in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Boston Celtics, where they kind of just let a couple of games slip it out of their hands because, one or two games go not in your favor. That can pretty much determine the outcome of the series. And so, I'm going to go ahead and stick with my pick, Nuggets in 6. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Miami Heat pushed these guys to the very end, going all the way to the distance, the end of the distance, which is 7. Because these guys are battle tested. These guys are resilient, and Eric Spoelstra has always talked about it. These guys have no quit in them, and they have a very, very strong leader in Jimmy Butler, which knows the task at hand, and he's looking to go out there and earn himself his first ever NBA championship. And so I'll stick with my picking Nuggets in 6. But before we jump off this Finals MVP, who do we think is going to walk away with this one?
It's going to be a pretty obvious pick to me, but Jokic, I think it's pretty straightforward, to be honest.
I think Aaron Gordon.
You're a jokester.
Jokic for sure, man. I mean, if the Heat pulled through Jimmy Butler, he's gonna make some history, for the Heat. But Jokic, I don't think anybody comes close to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm expecting Jokic to come into this series once again, average a triple double, and earn himself his first ever NBA Finals MVP along with the NBA championship. But once that happens, or if it happens, it's going to be a lot of uncomfortable conversations that we're going to have, and I believe we'll be ready to discuss that when the time comes, with how everything has gone for the Denver Nuggets and how everything's gone for Nikola Jokic specifically this entire season. But with that being said, we made our finals predictions. We're gonna close out this episode here. Any final words before we sign off?
Man, let's get these finals started. It's the biggest stage of basketball. Let's get it.
I hope we have a good finals, man. I hope every game's close. I hope some big buckets, coming down the stretch, and I hope it goes all 7 games. You feel me? So we get some good basketball. Hopefully, it ends on a nice note, and we'll see what happens.
A lot of people are mad that we got a Denver Nuggets versus Miami Heat NBA Finals series, and I feel like those guys, in my opinion, are just weird to me. Obviously, a lot of people wanting to see the Lakers and Celtics go at it, for number 18 due to the history that goes behind that. But at the end of the day, we're gonna watch the NBA Finals. We're gonna enjoy some good hoops, and I feel like these are the 2 best teams remaining in all of basketball. Whether we want to, obviously we know the Denver Nuggets are their 1 seed, but the Miami Heat coming in as the 8 seed, they were able to knock off the 1 seed, which were the Milwaukee Bucks. They were able to take care of business against the Knicks. They were able to knock off the Boston Celtics, who were the 2 seed, and now they sit here with the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. And so, very well deserved. A lot of people who are mad at that can, go watch golf or something like that, because
They don't enjoy hoops, man.
They don't enjoy hoops. They just
Bunch of casual fans. That's it.
Casual fans that want to enjoy the game, but while running their own agendas. And so, obviously, we've reached the end of the road, and I'm looking forward to discussing each and every game with you all. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and close out this episode here. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. We really appreciate your love and support. We'd really appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Media Podcast. And for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, all of our social media handles will be at the end of this video. And if you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, if you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to navigate yourself to all of our social media handles there. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Me and now Lakes, now that's overkill.